What does everyone think about? What does everyone think about this proposal? What does everyone think about Terry's option? What does everyone think about the budget? What does everyone think about? Do you have any thoughts on the marketing strategy? Do you have any thoughts on the new policy? Do you have any thoughts on our sales approach? Do you have any thoughts on... How do you feel about the changes in the project? How do you feel about the current workflow? How do you feel about the team's performance? How do you feel about... What are your views on the proposed merger? What are your views on the client's feedback? What are your views on the recent market trends? What are your views on... I'd like to hear your opinion on this design. I'd like to hear your opinion on the team restructuring. I'd like to hear your opinion on the upcoming event. I'd like to hear your opinion on... What are your thoughts on the new initiative? What are your thoughts on the deadline extension? What are your thoughts on the team allocation? What are your thoughts on... Could I get your input on the report structure? Could I get your input on our expansion plans? Could I get your input on the client proposal? Could I get your input on... What's your perspective on the market analysis? What's your perspective on the team's workload? What's your perspective on remote working? What's your perspective on... Can you share your views on the new software? Can you share your views on the budget allocation? Can you share your views on the project timeline? Can you share your views on... What's your take on the latest tech trends? What's your take on the company's new policy? What's your take on the quarterly results? What's your take on... Would you mind giving your feedback on... Would you mind giving your feedback on the presentation? Would you mind giving your feedback on our marketing plan? Would you mind giving your feedback on the new office layout? Would you mind giving your feedback on... How would you approach this client issue? How would you approach the project deadline? How would you approach team collaboration? How would you approach... Can I have your opinion on the new branding strategy? Can I have your opinion on the employee training program? Can I have your opinion on the yearly targets? Can I have your opinion on... What are your recommendations for improving customer satisfaction? What are your recommendations for the IT infrastructure upgrade? What are your recommendations for the team-building activities? What are your recommendations for... What's your stance on the new company policy? What's your stance on remote work flexibility? What's your stance on the current market strategy? What's your stance on... In your view, how should we proceed with... the merger? In your view, how should we proceed with the expansion plan? In your view, how should we proceed with the restructuring? In your view, how should we proceed with... Do you have any feedback on the presentation? Do you have any feedback on the project report? Do you have any feedback on the team meeting? Do you have any feedback on... What improvements would you suggest for... What improvements would you suggest for our process? What improvements would you suggest for our communication strategy? What improvements would you suggest for the client service model? What improvements would you suggest for... Can you share your analysis of market trends? Can you share your analysis of the competitor's strategy? Can you share your analysis of our sales data? Can you share your analysis of... How do you interpret the data on customer feedback? How do you interpret the data on employee satisfaction? How do you interpret the data on market share? How do you interpret the data on... What are your recommendations based on... What are your recommendations based on the analysis? What are your recommendations based on the survey results? What are your recommendations based on the financial report? What are your recommendations based on...
Thanks for joining this emergency meeting. We need to address the delays in our project timeline. Let's brainstorm solutions.
The main issue seems to be with supplier delays. We need a strategy to mitigate this risk.
I suggest we explore alternative suppliers to ensure we have backups in case of future delays.
While that's a good idea, we should also consider the cost implications of multiple suppliers.
What about increasing our in-house team to handle some of these tasks, reducing dependence on external suppliers?
It's vital that any new suppliers or increased in-house production maintains our quality standards.
These are all valuable insights. Let's analyze the feasibility and cost-effectiveness of each option.
In the meantime, we should communicate with our clients proactively about the delays to manage expectations.
Agreed. Let's prepare a detailed update for our clients and schedule another meeting to decide on the supplier strategy. Welcome, everyone. Today's brainstorming session is about innovative ideas for our new product launch. Let's get creative.
I think we should consider a social media campaign that targets younger demographics with interactive content.
How about incorporating augmented reality features into our product to enhance user experience?
Could we explore bundling this new product with our existing bestsellers to boost sales?
I suggest we use bold, eye-catching designs for the packaging to make it stand out on shelves.
What if we also focus on eco-friendly materials to appeal to environmentally conscious consumers?
These ideas are great, but we need to ensure they align with our budget constraints. Let's consider cost-effective options.
Excellent thoughts, everyone. Let's compile these ideas and assess their feasibility and market impact.